You're watching a golf tournament and you see a celebrity or a CEO come into the booth for an interview. Maybe you're watching live from at a major championship and a player joins the announcers on the set for an interview early in the week. I'll bet you've never wondered who set that up, who in the sports media universe makes the call to get those guests on that show. Turns out there's a job for that. Alex Russell is my guest on Media Credentials.
I demand satisfaction.
My name is Whit Watson, and this is Media Credentials. I'm a sports announcer who's worked a lot of places. This podcast will peel back the layers of sports media and show you how the sausage gets made. Through interviews with industry pros and my own experience, you'll understand why you're seeing what you're seeing and who's responsible for it. Your media credentials have been approved. Alexandria Alex Russell has a lengthy job title. She is the manager, player, talent, tour relations, and booking for NBC Sports and Golf Channel. Her career in sports media started innocuously as a runner, a gopher, at the 2010 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. The Golf Channel and NBC Sports headquarters are in Stamford, Connecticut, but Alex grew up in Orlando, which she still calls home when she's actually at home. As a liaison between the TV channels and key figures in golf, her job requires a lot of in-person contact. That means travel, although not nearly as much as her father traveled for his job, and I'll let her tell that story. Alex's department at NBC Sports consists of two women, herself and Courtney Holt. Between them, they might have the longest contact list in golf, if not in all of sports media. The mission of the podcast is to platform people who the average sports fan has never heard of, but if those people weren't doing their jobs, your experience as a fan would be quite different. I've taken some liberties with previous guests relative to that concept, but not this time. Alex and Courtney and many others at other networks perform essential tasks that live well under the radar. You may not know their names yet, but you benefit from their work, and in that case, Alex is squarely in the wheelhouse. And we welcome the person with the longest job title of anybody I've ever interviewed for the podcast. Hi, Alex. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Yeah, long, very long job title that surprisingly I would think my boss's job title is probably longer than mine.
All right, so tell me yours.
So mine is manager, player, talent, tour relations, and booking for NBC and Golf Channel.
That's pretty good. Does that fit on one business card?
No. You know, by the time we got our original department was player relations, and then I think in December of 2019 they rebranded us to player talent tour relations, and we tried to get the business cards and we couldn't figure out how to do it. We were like, all right, what exactly do we put on this? Because mine at the time was like specialist player talent tour relations, and it's like that doesn't fit anywhere. What are we doing? So we don't have new business cards, if in case anyone is wondering.
So explain then what the job is and what the department does.
We are a two-person department, Courtney Holt and myself. We manage all booking across NBC Sports, all sports. Insane. We used to have 3 people for just golf, and now it is 2 for all sports. Golf is my main thing. So anytime you see a guest on, Golf Today, Golf Central, College Central, live from, they come through us. We set up technical stuff. If it's an in-person appearance, we set up everything through the appropriate parties. So a massive volume of guests, and then managing, our relationships with governing bodies, agents. We kind of are like your catch-all. We take on a lot of hats and manage every relationship we have in the game.
So you're talking about players, agents, yes. PR firms.
Yes.
You're talking about celebrity guests who show up on shows.
Oh, yeah.
I would assume to build those relationships would require a lot of FaceTime, a lot of travel. I mean, is this considered to be a remote job?
Yes and no. My job, Courtney used to do majority of the travel. When I started, I think I would see her maybe once a month. And then we kind of started splitting up travel. And now I think I'm on the road maybe 26 weeks a year. Maybe not full weeks, but at least you're on and off a plane normally like 26 to 30 weeks, truly depending on what is going on in the world of golf, which right now is just insane. What isn't going on in the world of golf, really? A lot of FaceTime, lots of phone calls, lots of Teams meeting, lots of emails. It is a lot.
Is there a typical work week, or is it different every week?
Oh, it's different every week. Oh my gosh. The only consistent thing I have was like, our all call at 9 a.m. on Mondays, and then that's really it. We are everywhere all the time, and it always varies. Especially, I feel like, since we moved up to Stanford, I think a lot of people forget because of everything that has happened in the past 2 years. Like, don't forget what happened the past 3 years, really. I mean, we moved up to Stanford in January, new stuff all around, right? And then you have Mike Wan steps down. We're like getting in a rhythm. We're 2 days into like a completely new rhythm. And then Mike Wan steps down. And then, you had January 6th, which had to, the PGA of America had to react because they had tournaments at Trump courses. And then you had Tiger Woods coming out with a sixth back surgery. And by the time you got to the end of January that year, you were like, all right, let's pray for a peaceful February. And then mid-February, Tiger gets into a massive car wreck. There has not been a consistent day since we've been in Stanford. It is wild.
I do want to get a little deeper into your job, but typically at this point, this is where I would ask someone, how did you get started in the business? In this case, I think I already know the answer. Tell me what did your dad do before he retired?
So my dad was vice president of rules and competitions for the PGA Tour. So he was always the one you saw on TV. No, he did not wear the hat. Do not confuse him with Slugger White. That happens a lot.
That was the other guy. Slugger White and Mark Russell were the two that were on tour for 40 years between the two of them.
Yeah, my dad, I believe he is still the longest standing employee. He hit 40 years. I think Slugger was around 37, 38. Long, long, long time with the tour. So basically, one summer, my mom had said, we have all these great opportunities to travel with him. Why aren't we doing it? So in like 2010, I believe, it was 2010. We were like, she's like, all right, we're going to go to Pebble Beach. We're going to go to St. Andrews. And I'm like, okay. At that point, you're a teenager. You're kind of like, do I want to go sit at a golf course? It's like, you know what? I can do something else. So I went to one of our family friends, Steve Sands, and I said, I'd like something to do. I don't really care if I get paid. I'm just kind of looking to see, you're coming up on your college years and you're like, well, what do I want to do with my life? So he introduced me to some people, and Pebble Beach was my first event as a runner. And it just took off from there. I ran St. Andrews, and then they liked me and had me back. And Courtney Holt, my current boss, and I hit it off. And here we are. We just kept going.
I have a lot of empathy because, my kids never knew anything different. I was always on the road when they were growing up. All the high school events, I'd try to get back for golf tournaments and the talent shows and things like that. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. What was it like for you when Dad was on the road all the time?
I mean, all the credit goes to my mom. Sorry, Dad. Dad provided. Like, we're not gonna ever deny that. He provided a fantastic lifestyle. But I mean, my mother is just an absolute rock, and I think that's kind of what it takes. I'm sure you'd say the same about your wife when you're gone. He was gone 32 out of 52 weeks, if not 36.
Oh yeah.
Which is just, and that was very normal. Like, very few people, I feel like, understand that like, we're used to that. Like, oh yeah, he's on an 8-week stretch. Oh yeah, that's completely normal. Other kids are like, oh my God, what do you mean he's not coming to your high school band football game? He's
Right.
like, no, it's fine. I know he loves me. He's providing, he's the reason I can do all these great things. So it was tough at times. He did miss my college graduation, which, as golf fans would know, luckily he missed it because that was the weekend of the Keegan Bradley, what's his name? Oh my gosh, you're gonna have to edit this. Angel,
Oh, Miguel Angel,
yes,
yeah, Jimenez. Yeah.
yep, that was that my college graduation weekend was during that World Golf Championship, and he was like, I can't, like, I love you, I love you. I can't miss that. And there's an understanding that comes with that. You absolutely know that that's part of the job. That's what the job is. That's why, I can walk across the stage and graduate and I lead a great life because of it.
Was there anything else you were considering before you decided to take a trip with Dad and kind of got into the golf world? Were you thinking about any other industry?
Not real. I mean, I was always into like the journalism broadcast kind of aspect, but the really, really ironic thing is I wanted to be on air. I did the announcements in, middle school and elementary school, and I loved that. And I'd always, when Bay Hill would come around, we'd always go out and meet everyone who was on air and see the compound and the TV trucks. And I really liked it. But then I realized, I think within 2 days, and truthfully, within meeting my current boss, Courtney, I was like, I don't want to be on air. This is way too intimidating. This is a lot of work, and I'm much better suited for behind the camera. So I wanted to go to Georgia and study journalism, and then I made the comment to my mom, well, I really don't like writing. And she's like, I'm not going to pay out of state tuition for you to not like writing and go to a journalism school. So PR kind of became my thing, which is still a lot of writing, but like you said earlier, it's a lot more FaceTime and kind of some fun stuff with a lot of challenging things as well.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you grow up in the Bay Hill neighborhood in Orlando?
Yeah, so my mom and I moved down to Orlando when I was 4. So this is another funny golf tie. So she was Tom Cousins' longtime secretary. So she left right before he started the East Lake project. So a lot of golf ties within my family. Before that, she worked for Howard Clark, who was a former chairman of American Express, and he headed up what was the World Golf Association. It was the International Golf Association in the 80s. And that's how she met my dad. So we go way back with golf. But yes, always grew up in Bay Hill in this immediate Dr. Phillips area, which we are very, very spoiled. Theme parks within 20 minutes, restaurants that are just unheard of all over the world that are just fantastic, steakhouses, everything. I really do love our area. It was a great place to grow up and a lot of fun.
I know that your dad plays a lot of golf because he's talked about that
Every day.
in interviews. Right. Now, I'm going to ask about his retirement in a second. I promise this will not be entirely about your dad, but he's a legend. He's a legend on
He
the
is a
PGA Tour.
legend.
You and your mom, do you guys play?
I play a little bit. She likes to come out and laugh at us because I don't play often. My dad plays every day without fail. Like my
Mhm.
mom just told me today, excuse me, Orange Tree is closed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And she's like, "Oh my God, what's he gonna do?" I'm like, "Well, he'll be fine." But he plays every single day without fail. He's an afternoon golfer. He hates waking up for tee times, but he's playing more in the morning now that he has the time. But my mom will strictly come out and laugh at us because I don't get out that much. When I do, I mean, I can empty a clip like no other. I think I lose easily 12 balls at Orange Tree with no issues at all. Like my dad hates when I grab a Titleist. He's like, "Don't do that. Like you're just gonna lose it." So she loves coming out and laughing at us, which is it's always a family adventure. We're like the Three Musketeers. It's a very amusing dynamic between all of us.
Listen, there's no shame in losing golf balls at
No.
Orange Tree. You got to walk single file down the fairways at that golf course. For those who don't know, it's a private club in Orlando where actually a lot of mini tour players go to practice there because it's a tough golf course. It's a very demanding track. Does your dad make you putt everything out? Do you have to follow all the rules when you play together?
Oh God, no. I mean, I definitely don't. he makes fun of me because if I hit a bad shot in the fairway, and like I said, he's a nighttime golfer. He loves playing twilight golf. I will hit 3 balls in the fairway, and he's like, "Oh, this is." He always makes comments that it's completely against the rules, and this isn't the range. What are you doing? And I'm like, this is supposed to be fun, and this actually isn't fun. So I don't know what you want me to say.
So let's get back to your job. And let's say that you have an assignment to get somebody on live from. What are the basics of booking a guest?
A lot depends on who we're talking about. Like if we're talking about a player, normally Courtney and I like having those discussions because we are what we are. We love being ahead of the game. We like having those discussions. Like if you're talking live from the Masters, we like starting those in January. But it's like, are you talking about if you're talking about a player, we go straight to the agent, and then we make that a priority for Golf Channel for, I'd say, the next 4 months. We will have very minimum asks. Like John Rahm is a great example. I can imagine that someone will target. We kind of make that the biggest thing that we do. We approach the agent with, all of the timing, everything we can do, and, who will be on the desk. We really don't know that. We like to think we know the prime time lineup, but we present all options to everyone and say, we can tape, we can do this, here are the questions, or at least like the topics we can best think of. And we just kind of let the agent take it from there. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of, oh, well, he confirmed for Monday at 4. Well, actually, 2 days before. Well, that doesn't work for his schedule. So then you have to completely adapt everything. And we always just start with the agent and then kind of keep the conversation going and make sure it's fresh and something that, we want to make sure they want to do this too. So we make it as appealing as possible. I always like to lure people in with snacks. We have a huge snack closet at Augusta. So I'm always like, come by, we'll feed you. Like, it's great. It's a great time. Promise. We do a lot of beg, borrowing, and pleading, but hopefully, sometimes it really works. We've had some success. I think Dustin came on. My favorite thing. Sorry to kind of hijack this for a minute. So in 2022, every person we had on that we came up with, Scotty Scheffler at the Masters came on Monday. He went on to win the Masters. PGA, we didn't have anyone that we specifically requested to join. US Open, we're like, oh, let's get Matt Fitzpatrick on. That'd be fun. Won the USAM there. Let's do it. He went on to win. So I started perpetuating the theory that if we came up with guests that we wanted, they quite possibly might go on to win. I mean, it happened twice. I kind of think we're the good luck charm. I at least like to think that. I want to get that word out to everyone. I've tried to get it out to Rory's people for Masters. We would love to have him on anytime, anywhere. But like, let's perpetuate the theory. Let's have him join Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before the Masters, and then he might go on to win. I like to think we're the good luck charm.
You're the kingmakers. If you could get Rory McIlroy on and he goes on to win the Masters, he'll never say no to you again, ever.
I didn't even think about it that way. I just want to see Rory win a Masters. I didn't even go that far. I was like, you know what? This would just be really, really cool. It was cool to see all of a sudden. And I think it hit us when we were walking Matt Fitzpatrick up to the set on Sunday. I looked at Courtney and I'm like, you realize like the ones we came up with, not ones that were pitched to us, whether from an agent or the governing body in charge, like the ones we have come up with win. And she's like, oh my God, you're right. So we want to try to keep it going as much as we can.
Well, I'm running with that. That's our story.
I love it.
To it.
I love it.
When it comes to players, agents, talent, celebrities, I'm not going to ask you who's tough to deal with because you won't tell me. So nope. But who are some of the good guys? Who are some that are a pleasure to work with?
Man, see, I kind of operate under the theory of like, I feel like that very much depends on my mood that day, because some days I can love everyone, and other days I'm like, no, everyone, please leave me alone. So I feel like a lot of that is me dependent. But the guys the guys we had the best relationships with, I know at least I did personally. Henrik Stenson was always one of my favorites to work with. Him and Ian Poulter were always, now Ian could give you a rough time. He gave me a rough time several times, but I mean, at the end of the day, I could go to him and say, hey, look, we'd really like you to do this. And he'd go, okay, sure. And the same with Henrik. Those guys were always super approachable and great. And even now, like, I mean, I saw Henrik at the Open and just gave him the biggest hug ever. I was like, oh my God, I miss seeing you so much. And he's like, I miss you guys too. So a lot of the guys who we don't get to deal with anymore were really easy. But again, to your point about FaceTime, it's a lot of people who you have relationships with and who you get to know over this course. Like in 2022, when after Courtney and I'd worked the Super Bowl, she went home to work the Olympics. I really realized, like, wow, I have cultivated a lot of relationships myself. We were doing, we call them car wash interviews, where we sit players down for feature interviews for the year. And I'm like, this agent's calling me, that agent's calling me. I'm making deals with this and we're shifting this here. And I was like, man, I really do have all these relationships now. So I'd say, Wasserman's a great one. We deal with Wasserman almost every day. They have a ton of people. IMG, all of them are good to us because truthfully, we have good relationships with all of them and we shoot straight. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything to any agent. If there's something difficult we need to discuss, we're going to tell you what's coming. We're not going to hide anything from you. But, I feel like a lot of that plays to our credibility, and we walk a very fine line in our jobs with appeasing everyone on our side, but also managing those relationships. So I feel like as long as you shoot straight, those people are on your good side. And that's kind of what I've found over the years in terms of who's great to deal with. They all know who they're dealing with when they come to us.
So this question was a little bit further down on my list, but you brought up Ian Poulter and Henrik Stenson. So let's go there. Live Golf. How did Live Golf and all the events of the last couple of years affect your job?
Very strange. I mean, you kind of knew something was coming. We kind of knew in May 2021 there were rumors of something new coming, but we weren't sure what it looked like or anything like that. And then all of a sudden you fast forward to May a year later, and it's like this has taken shape and this is real and this is happening. For the past like 2 years, it has been, all right, what's the breaking news of the day? Like for me, who is a planner and is very much, if I can book out 3 or 4 guests for a show a week ahead, I'm going to do it. You can't do that when every day it's like, I don't know what's coming. No one knows what's coming. It has been a wild ride. We have a lawyer on retainer who's fantastic to kind of shed light and bring light to our viewers, which is super important, about everything going on with, everything that was going on with the litigation. Every day was just different, but not in a good way for me because I'm a planner and I hate ripping up rundowns, but it felt like nearly every day we were ripping up a rundown and entering into complete breaking news phase. And towards the end of 22, when you were like, all right, like this has happened, this is what it is, the teams are established, we should be okay. And then all of a sudden June 6th happens and you're like, oh my God, like what is going on? And for those who don't know, that was after golf's longest day. So all of our talent is in the air, and it was just an absolute wild thing that you're like, wow, okay, after golf's longest day where we're on from 6 to midnight and then 4 hours additionally in the day, we went 8 hours straight, no commercial breaks the next day, with most of our talent traveling. Rich Lerner luckily had to stay in California for a playoff. It was just like, all right, what's next? And it still feels like every day you're like, I'm booking out as much as I can, but man, you just at this stage in the game, you just have no idea what's going to happen.
Well, almost all of the talent was in the air because I was on the desk those 2
That's
days.
right.
Golf's longest day, which is the final day of US Open qualifying, and then followed by what we in the industry now refer to simply as June 6th, which was the day that the framework agreement was announced. And
Golf's
yeah,
second longest day.
golf's second longest day ended up being right, maybe longer than golf's longest day. And it was, as you said, it was just chaos. But I don't know about you on the talent side, when you've got breaking news like that and you're flying by the seat of your pants, and like you said, you've torn up the rundown. I actually find that exhilarating. I think that's kind of the fun part when you've got people around you who can support it. And you're not on an island. You've got a lot of people working together to make this thing happen. Do you kind of feel the same way? Do you get a bit of a rush when things break?
No, I
No.
probably break out in hives.
No, you're the planner. Okay.
I am the planner. Yes and no. Like when you are in the middle of it, you can't see really the whole picture. It's like, all right, who's on next? Who's on the ground? Who's here? Like I'll never forget calling Rex Hoggard, who had read it, because a lot of people still were either like hadn't read the release or what. And Rex answered the phone and he goes, "Do you need me to get on this plane?" Because he was traveling back. And I'm like, absolutely. Like, I need you in your home studio. Send me your ETA. And then, trying to figure out where everyone is. What angles are we going to take? Are any players going to speak on this? What executives are available? It becomes a massive puzzle. And at the time, you're just kind of like in a daze because, I mean, when that news broke, I think everyone was in shock. Like, I am slightly dyslexic. So when I read the release, I kind of stopped. I reread it because I didn't believe what I was reading. And then when I called Courtney, I'm like, she was like, "Oh, hey, da 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 da," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," I'm like, "You haven't read this. Like, you're too happy because you have not read what's going on." And she was like, "Oh yeah, driving in," and I'm like, "You need to pull over and read this." And all of a sudden, you shift into this is going to be a normal day to we're about to go into complete crisis mode, and we've got to figure out how we're approaching this. And I mean, to your point, I mean, you are surrounded by people who know what they're doing. And I mean, that was just crazy. When I think of who we had slated, like we had DJ Khaled slated for, it wasn't June 6th, it was June 7th, but you knew the news was going to carry over. Canceling everyone and figuring out what viewpoints you wanted to hear from was really, really trying because everyone you would turn to was traveling back from golf's longest day and you needed the best of the best. Like we lucked out with Dom Chu was in Orlando, CNBC. He was fantastic. Tarico was in Paris and was luckily in one place. And we had you guys in the studio and we had Rich on the ground. Like we lucked out and that definitely bought us some time to get our ducks in a row. But man, it was, I don't even have words for it. Like when I look back at it, I'm like, man, we probably booked over 30 guests in 8 hours. And it's like, how is that even possible? Like we just sit there and go, all right, you're calling this person, you're doing this, we're going to put this person here, we're going to do this. And it's just like, it's chaos. But then when you step back from it, you're like, all right, we did a pretty damn good job at this. But it's hard to see it in the middle of just absolute madness.
Right. It's fun to look back on, but in the middle of it, it's not fun.
No.
I agree with you on that. So let me jump back to the job title, the world's longest job title. The phrase tour relations, is that just the PGA Tour or does that extend to other tours?
Well, okay, so my title is Player Talent Tour Relations. So yeah, I think tour was the shortest thing. I mean, maybe they could have put governing bodies in there to make the title even longer, but no, that extends to any governing body. And it's not just the PGA Tour, it's the LPGA Tour, it's all the feeder tours from the PGA Tour, the PGA Tour champions, excuse me, and the DP World Tour, Asia Tour, it's all of them. And it's all encompassing. It's the USGA, the PGA of America, Augusta National, the RNA. It's everyone.
And more often than not, what kind of info are you exchanging? Are they coming to you, or are you more often going to them?
It really depends on the year. Sometimes, most of the time, truly, it is them pitching stuff to us, which we almost always go with. Like, a lot of these people are our partners, and we aim to please. And normally, it is stuff that is very important in the golf world. It is breaking news in the golf world. It might not be breaking news to someone who, is into business or whatever, but for us, it is normally true breaking news that we need to cover in some way, shape, or form. So our partners are amazing at coming to us with things. And then, we do come to them. Normally that takes place more during the major championships that they run. So we'll go to them and say, "Hey, this is who we're targeting for players. We'd like your CEO on here. We'd like to try this." So it truly depends on the year and what is going on.
You started at Golf Channel, as you mentioned, in 2010. What have
Yeah.
been some of the biggest changes in golf during your time?
Well, I think everything that's going on right now, I think that was the biggest change. You do have rule changes every every 5 years, I think. I mean, I remember the USGA coming in 2017, and then those didn't take place to 19, I think. So 2 years, but nothing as big as what we're seeing right now. What we're seeing right now is just mind blowing in terms of golf news and everything that's going on with the game, because we don't know what's going to happen. Like, I can't. No one knows what's going to happen within the next year, or by January 1st, when this framework agreement comes out. If it comes out, who knows? No one knows. It's really not a fun game to play right now.
No, I'm with you, and I get asked about it, I'm sure, just as often as you do. And the fact is, anyone who says they know what's coming is lying, because no
Right.
one knows what's
No
coming.
one
And
knows.
right,
It's insane. I will say, no one knows, but like the general public, I did laugh because one of my really good friends in Orlando sent me a text when Liv was playing in Orlando, and they went, "Do you know anything about this?" And I'm like, "Do I know anything about this? Where would you like me to start?" Like, I it cracked me up, but the general public still does not. No one knows what's going on. It's a nice little abyss we're in right now.
jumping back a little bit, you have a master's degree in mass communications and public relations. Did you think that was something essential to have before entering the media industry?
No, no, not at all. I went to Florida State, and I got my master's from the University of Florida, which is not a well-known fact. My godfather died not knowing I have a degree from the University of Florida, because my mom's side is all Bulldogs. Like UGA, like I laugh, like we laugh about it, but it's true. Like, he died not knowing I have a degree from Florida. So it's my very well kept secret. But no, I definitely don't think it's something you need to have. I think hands-on experience is way more important than any degree you could ever get. My years as a runner set me up for success, because I have a full understanding of what happens in the field, what's happening in the truck, and then, where we go from there. A degree's not gonna, you can learn the basics and how to write a release and how to do things like that, but until you're thrown into the fire, you're not gonna know what to do.
I've had our mutual friend Lena Bustos come on the podcast talking about
Oh, it was
life.
her birthday
And it
yesterday.
was her birthday this week as we record this. That is correct. I talked to Tracy Veal from the PGA Tour, talked to Christy Hugick, who worked with us at Golf Channel, now
Yeah.
Sirius XM. And I'll ask you the question I asked them, which is, what have you encountered as a woman working in a field that is predominantly male?
Wow. Um, I truthfully can say I never really encountered anything difficult. Every man I met was welcoming, and not in any like creepy way. They were all welcoming, and they all wanted you to succeed. And to me, that was the most important thing about the culture at Golf Channel, which it was just everyone from the top to anywhere else wanted to see you succeed as a female. And that was great. Like that kept me wanting to come back every summer and run and work and figure everything out because you had such an amazing support system. I will say, I think being a female in different countries, when you are arguably the highest ranking person from that team on site, sometimes it's very difficult when that's not really accepted in other cultures. But I really don't have any negative experiences. All the men I work with have been super supportive, and they know I want them to succeed. And because if they don't succeed, if I don't succeed, then we don't succeed as a team. And I feel like that's something that our team very much knows and understands. So it all positive experiences from me on that front.
And not to be flippant, but a little bit of that may be the fact that everyone's afraid of your dad.
You know, some people are like, "Oh, nepo baby," and I'm like, "No. Like I worked very hard." But my dad really, when I started the job, like we just had like a line, like, and it was like, I'd go to him if he needed help, and if I needed help, and if he had questions, I'd answer. But there's still, even now, there's still a line of like confidentiality that you don't cross in the house. So it's very funny because I feel like my mom probably knows all. Like she gets it from his side and she gets it from my side. So she's probably the real wealth of information, to be completely honest.
Other than your dad, who were mentors or role models for you as you moved along in golf?
Definitely Courtney Holt. I feel like I've dropped her name more than anyone on this podcast. Her and I met in 2010 when I first started, and we just hit it off. I think this was maybe like her second US Open was the one I was working, and she had asked me to go get John Feinstein, and I have known John Feinstein since I was 3 or 4 years old. So when I was like, "Oh, okay, no problem," and she's like, "You don't need a description, you don't need a photo." I go, "No, like I've known him my whole life. I'm good, thanks." So her and I really kind of hit it off at that moment. I think she realized I need my hand held at sometimes, but I do know a lot of these people from my family life. So I think it was kind of refreshing for her to be like, "Oh, you actually know all these people." And it's like, absolutely. Like we're locked in, and there you go. She has by far been my biggest mentor and is always pushing me to do more, to get out there more, and really, really embrace the role I'm in. So I definitely would not be anywhere if it was not for her.
And you want to talk about someone who knows where all the bodies are buried. Courtney
Oh,
Holt,
absolutely.
who is your boss, who leads this department that you described. I don't think there's anything or anybody in golf that she doesn't know. It really is amazing.
But in sports, you forget she worked in Philly for a very, very long time and is connected. But one of my favorite stories ever is her and one of our other colleagues, Andrew Bradley, lead field producer, big Philly fan, big Eagles fan, and Courtney. Even though people think she's an Eagles fan, she's from Massachusetts, so she's a big Patriots fan. So when they played in the Super Bowl, her and Andrew went to Minnesota, and Andrew texted me and he goes, "You won't believe what just happened." And he's like, "We're walking through the concourse and she runs into Chicky and Pete's," which I'm probably going to get this wrong. I want to say like a fast food place in Philly. And the Chicky and Pete knew her and we're just like, "Oh my God, it's Courtney." She knows everyone, everywhere, in all aspects of sports and just around the world. It's insane.
Well, I think the lesson here from both you and from her is that it's a relationship business. I
Yes.
mean, that isn't that kind of the bottom line?
Absolutely. Like the FaceTime is, I think, one of the most important things you can have, because when an email comes through to prominent agents, they're not glossing over it. And we've heard that from numerous very powerful agents who go, "Yeah, I might still tell you no, but at least I read your email." And there's something to be said for that, for sure. Like, yeah, the answer might be no, but they know who's emailing them. They know it's not just some random person asking for their player's time or their celebrity's time. They know it's a credible source. So relationships, I mean, it is a full-on relationship business, and there's not much more that can be said than that. I mean, like you said, she has some of the best relationships in the business, and learning from her on how to cultivate those and how to, move in very, very strange situations that we encounter. Like, she always does it with the most tact, and she always has a smile on her face. Like, learning that was by far the most important thing when it comes to relationships, is you always shoot straight, and you always do the best that you can.
What advice would you have to a young person who might be interested in doing something similar to what you do?
uh don't go into engineering or something. No, I'm kidding. Hands-on experience is the most important thing. When I really thought I was going to be in front of the camera, I got experience from, whether it's your elementary school, middle school, or high school, like TV production. That was really a great intro, because I went in and, like, I knew how to edit stuff, and I was halfway decent at it, but I really thought I wanted to be on air. But I knew how to write copy. I knew how to do certain things, but I would just say experience. Most colleges have some kind of TV program, and you can either go into sports. Just keep your eyes and ears open. I mean, experience can come in the strangest of ways, but those normally turned out to be the best of ways. Like, I seriously was taking running as like a summer job. I never thought I would be like, okay, this is my path. I really thought, all right, I'll go get experience, I'll go have fun in college, and then I'll figure it out. I never in a million years really thought that this would be my path. But it was, because I took a chance, and I thought, all right, let's go. So hands-on experience is the most important things. When you have, like I said, I went to Florida State. Game day was on site. Always went down to that compound just to talk to people and just to see what was going on. Now, I say that I was going down there to see a lot of the camera guys and the lighting guys who we worked with, who are like family. But you always just have to go down and see what's going on, and just dig in as much as you can. Because to me, if I'm looking at someone, I want to know I can throw someone into the field and you're good. Like, I don't need to hold your hand. You've been around it. You can see it. You're not going to act a fool when you see a famous person. Experience is by far the most important thing. And one lesson I will say that I took from my father, who always, always told me, act like you've been there before. And I always just kind of laugh, and, like, we still kind of make fun of him for it. But when you're put in situations where you are next to very, very famous people and you're like, oh my God, like, act like you've been there before. Don't act like a noob. Don't take selfies. Act like you've been there before. And I feel like that is one of the most valuable lessons I have.
In just a few seconds, we'll have some closing thoughts on this episode, so stay tuned. If you're enjoying it so far, please consider subscribing or sharing, and leave a review. Let me know what you'd like to hear in the future on Media Credentials. Let's talk about January and February of 2021, the convergence of chaos that Alex mentioned. January 4th, 2021 was the first day that Golf Channel went live from the NBC building in Stamford, Connecticut. On January 6th, Mike Wan announced he was stepping down after 11 years as the commissioner of the LPGA Tour. That's right, January 6th, the very same day as the assault on the U.S. Capitol. 5 days after that, the PGA of America announced it would move the 2022 PGA Championship away from Trump's Bedminster Club in New Jersey. On February 23rd, 2021, Tiger Woods had that near-fatal single-car accident in Southern California. Now, imagine you have a job like Alex's, and that is your first 2 months in the new office. It's no wonder she had no words. The Keegan Bradley Miguel Angel Jimenez dust-up happened at the 2015 WGC Match Play event at TPC Harding Park. You can Google the video. Now we know that Mark Russell was the rules official on site that week, and it was the same week that Alex Russell graduated from Florida State. If you've seen my social media, you know that I'm a nerd for research. My note cards have become a calling card. Talking to Alex, though, is a reminder that working in sports media is not just preparation, it's people. One-to-one, face-to-face, that's how the work gets done. And having a smile on that face doesn't hurt. Thanks again for listening to Media Credentials. For examples of my work, including video and audio clips, a blog, and my contact page, check out whitwatson.com.